Dala tu cuerpo alegría Macarena, que tu cuerpo es para dar la alegría y cosas buenas. Dala tu cuerpo alegría Macarena, Macarena. Dala tu cuerpo alegría Macarena, que tu cuerpo es para dar la alegría y cosas buenas. Dala tu cuerpo alegría Macarena.
Welcome back, everybody, to Belize Talk Radio. And, you know, during commercial break, I'm always thinking of things that I want to ask and I want to know more of. And, you know, listeners, I know there's questions that you have that you would like to ask. And so I'm going to think of some of those ahead of my time, ahead of my thoughts, and share them with you and ask you to help us with these things. Okay. There's people that are, you know, there's people moving here, right?
Yes.
I
think so.
There's been a lot of people moving here.
Yeah.
When I moved here, like, you know, 10 years ago, it was like there was not so many people expatriating or coming, you know, from North America. But now we have a influx of people coming in. And they're not just retiring, they're coming in bringing their children,
yes.
Which is something we were speaking about with Ave. How do you feel as, you know, your position on people moving to San Ignacio?
Well, we're a community that is open, you know, and welcoming to our friends, to visitors, you know. And definitely I think one of the things that when people visit, especially Belize and especially this area, San Ignacio, Santa Elena, the Cayo district on the whole, you know, they feel that warmth and that welcome, and that's the reason they want to come and move here, you know. And especially also this is a very scenic, very mountainous area, you know, and especially with the climate, the weather, it's nice, you know, most of the year round, and then with the natural beauty we have here, the Mayan ruins, you can take 2 hours away, you can be in Placencia, you can be in San Pedro on the beach, and right towards the back you can right be here in the jungle if you want to be. So I think that's one of that's the main characteristic of this area, and then also the warmth of the people you feel when you get here in San Ignacio and Santa Elena. I think that's what has attracted a lot of people to this area. You know?
Absolutely, and it's what attracted me. You know, I knew some people that owned a resort here, and so, you know, I'd already become friends with them. So, you know, I chose this area because I knew people, and I figured, well, if I want to move somewhere else, I can. I was already in the perfect place, because I can get to anywhere I want to, but it is the warmth of the people here. People have treated me fabulous. Belizeans that are here, I mean, I completely felt home. I got to coach the Cayo Avengers for 2 years. That was amazing. Yeah. You know, the semi-pro soccer team. Yes. And so, you know, I got to do a lot of stuff that I never moved here not to be part of the community. And so, listeners, if you're looking to move to a foreign country and you're thinking of Belize, you want to become one with Belize. And I know that's kind of a cliche, but it's the truth. You don't want to come to Belize and not become part of the community, because it's worth your time. And if you're looking for a different kind of lifestyle or quality of life, we have it here. You know, many people are like, oh, you moved to Belize, it's third world. What? I moved here and we got DSL a year later, and I'm like, what? Now we're getting beautiful roads thanks to John August, our mayor, and, you know, sidewalks and the downtown welcome center. That brings me to another question. What are your future plans that you see there's, you know, going to be happening, and things that you're working on currently?
Yes, well, definitely Macarena, the Cayo Welcome Center has been a really added attraction to San Ignacio and Santa Elena. It's a wonderful project that we have developed there along with the Belize Tourism Board and the government of Belize. It has really brought a new sense of a new identity to this area. And, you know, San Ignacio in itself, San Ignacio is very historic. It's a very historic area, historic part of this country, especially since this is the area and the district that you find a lot of the Mayan ruins, the ancient Mayan ruins, who once made this their home many years ago, thousands of years ago. So that history is still here. You can see with the ruins right around. In fact, right here in San Ignacio, we have the famous Calpech ruins. Also, then we had the days of the mahogany, and, you know, the mahogany days, the chicle days, you know, when those were exported to the United States, to Europe, and those different countries. And so all of that history, and now we're bringing something new. This welcome center has brought a new identity to San Ignacio. It's a welcome. It's a place that you feel welcome as you arrive here in the town. And complemented right there, we also have the farmers market. You know, that's very close by. That's another main attraction where people like this area, especially on the weekends when you go to the market, and you can get a chance to speak to the Mennonite people from the Mennonite community, people from the rural areas, and you can buy your fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, meats. You know, that's all. You know, makes it that culture. You can feel that culture here on the weekends and in this town. You know, and And all these things are complementing each other, you know, and making a dynamic downtown San Ignacio and Santa Elena. But definitely, you can see on Burns Avenue how we have improved that little area of Burns Avenue, where it's just pedestrian friendly now. You know, you can walk there in the evenings or early in the morning, get a cup of coffee, sit down on the not historical Burns Avenue. As you are aware, you might be aware, when we were doing the excavation to improve that street, it was a major discovery was made there with all the Mayan pottery and the skeletal remains. That was just like 5 feet below, you know, when we did the excavation, you know, and it was quite amazing. So you can see that when you're walking in that area of San Ignacio, where the Burns Avenue, the Welcome Center, the history that is there, you know, that ancient history of the Mayas right there. You're walking right on those tombs, you know, you're walking right, and we didn't know, you know, and so all of that, you know, is what is making us so dynamic, you know, and we are looking at other things we can do to make it even more dynamic for people visiting and for people living here also.
You know, I love that word that you use, dynamic, and when that happened, when they discovered the pottery, we were in conversation. We had breaking news with Jaime Awe, and then we had Antonio Berdal come up, and he was explaining what they were finding and all the reverence, because it wasn't like people just started digging and destroying. Oh no, everything stopped.
Yeah.
And that's dynamic.
Yeah, definitely.
It is. Oh yes, we need progress, but whoa, we're not going to progress anything until we figure out what we have right here.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So the walking area right now, because you can walk the Burns Avenue. A lot of people are enjoying that because they can sit outside of restaurants and things like that. And you know, we just had dinner at Greedy's. We sat outside there we couldn't have sat out on the street before because cars would have hit us. But so it's fascinating to me because San Ignacio is such a cultural rich place, and the people, you know, you can walk the downtown. Mm-hmm. I love that. And it's alive. It's alive at night. You know, there's places that the streets roll up at night, but San Ignacio doesn't.
We are working presently with the Belize Tourism Board to develop a heritage trail downtown San Ignacio and Santa Elena. It's quite interesting. I did the walk a couple of months ago with the various people working with us on this project, and it's quite interesting of the many historical things you can find right in San Ignacio, in downtown and in Santa Elena. You can take a walk. There's still old buildings here that dates maybe 100 or more years, you know. We have where we have the magistrate court, where the police station is present located. Right next to that there's a building. If you look at some pictures from the early 1900s, 1902, 1903, the building is still there, and it still looks the same as it looked then, you know.
Wow.
So it's still in that. And there are other historic buildings that have played major part in the development of this town. In Santa Elena, we have the original owners of that. They're buried right there next to, almost close to the riverside, and those tombs are still there. The Requena family. Here you have other little buildings that have played a major role, you know, governmental buildings also that are still existing today, and they're quite old. So we want to develop a heritage trail that when you walk around San Ignacio and Santa Elena, you can pinpoint, oh, this happened there once. The old hospital. Yeah. We are looking how we could preserve that building. It's really, it's an old structure. It was once a burial ground for this municipality way back in the early 1900s, late 1800s. So there's so much, you know, so much things, and we're looking now to highlight these things, you know, to preserve that history in this municipality, and that you can take an hour and a half and just walk around downtown San Ignacio and Santa Elena and learn about the history of the people who lived here before and how this twin town has evolved, you know, to where it is today. So we're working on that, and very soon we'll have that heritage trail, and we'll have a map up somewhere in downtown. I'm not sure the location yet, where you can go, and then you can start from point A to point B and vice versa. So
we want to see the map. We want to do that. Listeners, well, let's go for a walk. I'll take you to each spot. We'll talk about them, and maybe we get John August to go with us, or, you know, if the mayor's busy. I know you're a busy man.
We'll have to do a show with that.
It would be fun. We can do the walk. Yeah. We can go to different places and talk about each place, because, you know, the way that people have respect for where they live is to learn the history of it. You know, I got to you know, several years ago, I think it was, my gosh, it was like 6 years ago, we interviewed Mr. Phillips up the streets. And, you know, and he was part of doing the bridge down here.
Yes,
You know, he
yes.
lives right up here, right above, you know, from the office, and he had stories of the bridge being put in.
Yes.
So I drive across that bridge, and it's like honorary, because all these hardworking men put that bridge in there. The Hawksworth Bridge, by the way, is the metal bridge that connects San Ignacio town and Santa Elena together.
Yeah.
The sister and twin towns, or the twin towns, sister towns. What I think is funny to me is that you're the mayor of our twin towns.
Yes.
And your mother was born here in San Ignacio,
Yes.
and your father was born and raised in Santa Elena.
That's right.
So you really are a mixture of the two of them.
Yes, I have a connection
And-
in both, relatives on both sides.
So they can be telling you, hey, our streets need this, and our
Yes,
streets need that,
definitely.
and we need this, and we need that. But you are a perfect choice, because you're a mix. You're a
Yes,
mix of
and
the
I
two.
think that has been good, you know, it has helped a lot in my political career, you know.
People know you, yes.
Yes, you know, and definitely, you know, it's quite interesting that the river separates both towns, but the warmth, you can feel the warmth on both sides, you know, though the river is there, and sometimes you might feel you're you're in two different towns, but under one twin town, no?
Yeah.
But the warmth is still there. The people are, although a little bit different, but they share that same warmth, and that's a common bond, you know. That's one
Yes.
thing I love about this town.
There's
Yeah.
something very special
Yes,
about
yes.
the San Ignacio Santa Elena town.
Yes, yes.
And, you know, actually when I coached the Cayo Avengers, we had players that came from further out
Yes.
of our area because they wanted to be part of this area.
Yeah.
So, listeners, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a moment. We're going to tell you more about San Ignacio and Santa Elena. I'm your host, Macarena Rose, and you're listening on the Overseas Radio Network.
Dala tu cuerpo alegría Macarena, que tu cuerpo es para dar la alegría y cosas buenas. Dala tu cuerpo alegría Macarena, Macarena. Dala tu cuerpo alegría Macarena, que tu cuerpo es para dar la alegría y cosas buenas. Dala tu cuerpo alegría Macarena.